It's the main moose in the canoe. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It's Tuesday. Welcome to Tuesday. We're going to keep drawing for you today. My coffee is now cold and not as satisfying, but it's still coffee, and that means it's better than no coffee. At least until you've had over 4 cups of coffee in a day. Unless you're Dorian, who can have like 2 pots of coffee in a day. That's right, Drew. That's right. You're here because I knew you'd be here. Welcome, dog. I'm here because of you. I'm here because I saw your comment on the live stream, whatever it was, the Four Brothers podcast, where you're like, I check Facebook every day to see when Tom's going to be on. And that's why I'm here, because that voice is now always in my head. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be working on the Mando Commando drawing, and it's taken a turn from fun, exploring, experimental project demonstrating something I wanted to do, and now it's becoming an illustration for a friend. And my friend KK, who's totally awesome, she took me to go see Baby Metal in DC 2 years ago, and it was awesome. Actually, I like the opener better. The opener was a Swedish band called Avatar. Loved them. Knew nothing about them before the show. They're crazy. And that was awesome. KK's a badass, and she reminds me of my sister a little bit. So we're going to keep working on this drawing. I probably put another 2 hours in since the last stream of just doodling. Every time I think I'm going to sit, listen to the podcast, and draw, ends up me just goofing off on the internet. So I needed to stream to make myself accountable to do some work. What up, Nate? Hey, man. I'm glad you like Baby Metal, too. Happy Tuesday, Nathan. Hope you're well. Hope you're well. Hope you had a good holiday. What was your favorite present of the holidays, if you got presents? If you didn't get presents, did you get yourself something? Did you get yourself some new Machine and Krieger figures? That'd be cool. Keep bashing something new. That'd be fun. So what is, I got to give a shout out to fellow artist Isaac Orloff yesterday, who did an Adobe live stream. And it was my first time watching Adobe live. Let me see if I can give you guys a taste of what he draws. And he did this hour-long stream about some landscape painting he did. Yeah, here's his ArtStation page. Gotta share the love. And Isaac's paintings have always been pretty good, but in the last 24 months, they have taken a turn for the great. And I've been bugging him to do some kind of live stream or something in Adobe. He did it with Adobe. Very official, very good. And man, how cool is this piece? How cool is this Pacific Northwest piece? Look at that. And he went through his method, and seeing his method makes so much darn sense. I highly recommend any artist go take a look at Adobe Live. The video should still be up there. I think it was pretty popular from yesterday. Isaac Orloff, digital painting. And what he does using the selection tool, I'll demonstrate it really quick. I'll demonstrate what I saw him do really quick. Seeing his process for making landscape got me really excited to do some more landscape stuff of my own. And sometimes you're just too afraid to try something because you're too far detached from the skill required to do it. And I think seeing like 3 things in Isaac's stream yesterday turned the light bulb on, and now I get a sense of what's going on. Super, super helpful. Can't thank you enough. I need to go buy one of his prints. Video might have disconnected for a second. Yeah, so one of the things he does that I thought was really cool, like let's say if I wanted a little highlight on this rock right here, instead of just painting it like I would typically do, he would make a new layer and then get out the selection polygonal lasso tool, and draw the shape, like mask out the shape of the highlight he wanted. Something like, oh, I screwed it up already. Something like the shape of the highlight he wanted. Right? Okay, so there we go. So we have a selection, and then using a brush. Jeez. See, I'm so new to this workflow that I'm tripping all over myself. He was using a gouache brush from Kyle's Brushes in Photoshop. So he would pick the highlight color that he wanted. Let's say for this rock, it's kind of a like a Is Leica the right word? I don't want Formica. I want the word that's that little green mossy texture you see on New England and northeastern rocks in wet forests. And he would then draw his like marking shapes within this selection area. And so it has like a hand authored kind of effect to it, but it was in a fixed shape, like the way painters work. Painters usually typically think about shape and then uh, color and tone and all that kind of stuff too. But first, that shape is really important, the outermost shape of something like that. I never thought about doing it this way before. And then because it's on its own separate layer, you can use all the power of Photoshop's layer styles to affect that surface. So maybe we use a hard light, and then we can adjust the level of brightness until we get something that we think looks pretty good. And once we have something that's pretty good, I would merge it down, but he leaves it all separate. He works in like 100 layers. Sometimes these workflows take a while just to wrap your brain around. And for the record, like every time I go to a new company, it's usually been like 6 months. It takes me like 6 months to wrap my brain around the local workflow for what they're doing. Because even though there's all these standards in the industry in terms of like what software you use, what method of texture mapping, all the new work in game development with PBR, which is physically based rendering, some of those pipelines are becoming more common, like the use of Substance Painter. But I mean, for each game engine, each game has its own efficiencies and inefficiencies. So you're going to be doing stuff a little bit different everywhere you go, and every art director is going to want something a little bit different from everybody else. So that's a little bit of advice for people who are outside of the game industry or trying to get into the game industry. Nathan knows all about this, and I don't got to lecture Nathan about it. I think he just likes watching me draw, so I'm going to keep drawing. Thanks for tuning in, dudes and dudettes who are out there, and those who do not categorically assign dude or dudette for themselves. Can't forget them. What would be the non-gendered version of dude or dudette? I want to know that today. That's going to be my quest. Coffee provided by Wegmans today. It is some cheap $4 a bag hazelnut, and I'm not thrilled about it. So what do we got going on? Just to brief you guys, we have some kind of Mando type character, but I've taken some Tom liberties, making it slightly more tactically realistic based on the technology of 2020 United States of America, real world type stuff. Because I find like a lot of the gun pist like look, Mandalorian season 2 has some amazing shootouts, amazing combat. Mando 1, we love gunslinger stuff in Western society, gunslinger movies, just the way of the gun, that kind of stuff's really cool. John Wick movies are introducing the public to some real world tactical gunfighting type stuff, which is a lot different than Han Solo just like blaster, whoa, gonna shoot the bad guy kind of stuff. So what do we have that's different here? Well, we have a proper gun belt, we have a proper Kydex holster, we have a proper pistol that's compensated, got lights and lasers, a magazine, and a red dot on top. So that's some stuff I wanted to work into this character. Everything else is kind of typical Star Wars. Oh, and a solid chest plate in the middle. That's that update. But we're going to hide this for a bit and continue working on the background. So let's hide that character there and go into it. Nate's got me on the second monitor while he's doing boring stuff. Thanks, Nate. Thanks, Nate. Pretty cool. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you about what I've been working out to lately, and that is Dan Carlin's Hardcore History Supernova in the East. That is some amazing history. I just finished the fifth segment of that. I think each one's like 3 hours. So I've gotten like 15 hours of awesome history and analysis and discussion about the war in the Pacific, 1935 to 1945. 35, Tom? What do you mean 35? America didn't enter the war till 41. Right, but you got to know the backstory about what was going on in China, what Japan was doing in China. So it's some pretty heavy stuff, especially the fifth. I mean, it was heavy before, but getting into the fifth stuff, talking about the Marianas, the battles in New Guinea, it's almost like there was a 9/11 happening to American soldiers every single island they visited. And it went on for years. And like every month they're at a different island, and we're sustaining 9/11 level of casualties, the Great War. And I really worry that as my generation's getting into our 30s, and Gen X is getting into their 50s, and the boomers are getting into their 50s and 60s, and there's no more, like, we're running out of World War II vets. There's very few, especially with COVID. That's like one of I mean, I don't know, a lot of older people are dying, but I think we're losing a lot of history. I just hope that, um, I think in general, society is marching towards a more open society where people actually talk about things. But then again, we talk about more things because I think the things that we're dealing with are easier to talk about. The kind of horrors that the Pacific Theater veterans saw were so horrible, and Dan Carlin starts to illuminate some of those horrors in a digestible way without being too graphic, but letting you know like how bad stuff really is. It makes me a little bit more empathetic to why the vets didn't tell their stories about what was going on. Now, versus something like today, I think we're seeing a lot more, maybe the monetization of novels and literature and movies and stuff like that has paved a way for veterans to come back and tell their stories and share their stories, but also just handy camcorders. Drew says there's a new comment option on Facebook to just message the presenter. Neat. Yes, Drew, I turned that on. I went into the Facebook streaming options and I saw that there, so we're experimenting with that today. If you want to send me a note on that, I'd be really excited to see what that looked like. Because there's a couple things within the Facebook stream that I do not get really good information on. Okay, so what am I doing here? I'm just trying to get like a mossy kind of rocky rock wall type thing going on over here. It's not nothing too crazy, because the point of this painting is not to do some background landscape stuff. It's more like, because I've given my assignment of doing this character drawing for a friend, I want to incorporate some decent environment backgrounds. Something weird's going on where I'm picking a color, painting, and it was darker. Okay, that's better now. That's better. Good stuff. What else am I excited about? You know, I tried watching some Netflix last night, thanks to a friend of mine who's letting me use their Netflix account secretly. I was watching George Clooney's space movie called Midnight Sky. And I talked to Steve Eggery about it later, and I was like, dude, what did you think of that movie? Because there's parts of it that were really pretty, and then parts of it that were super dumb. Super dumb. And I don't understand how you make a movie with that high of a production value and you don't go talk to an astronaut or somebody who works at NASA or somebody who works in the Arctic and like get some more plausible storytelling plot points. Because there's a lot of stuff in that movie that is just like silly and dumb. For one, look, it's really pretty, and if it wasn't for the last, like, the turn at the end of the movie, I would have said it was irredeemable. But the turn at the end makes it worth a watch, I think. There's a couple things that it just didn't need to do. One, like, okay, it's set in 2065. Number one, spaceships that big in 2065 are just not, like, every time you see a movie and the spaceship is, like, huge and it takes place sometime in this century, I already give up on it, because it just costs too much to launch that stuff into orbit, and it's not going to be cheap anytime soon until we get alien level technology, element 115 gravity drives. Like, we're just not getting that much mass into space. So what they need to do is, like, space movies need to be more like submarine movies. Like submarine movies from the 40s, 50s, 60s, like Hunt for the Red October. That claustrophobia is actually a really valuable thing when adding tension to a movie. All these sets can be so much smaller, so much smaller. I'm guessing it was somehow cheaper to film on a bigger set. I just don't believe it. I just don't believe that the spaceship exists in 2065 that has these cavernous rooms in it. Drew says, got to be at least half of Netflix users using someone else's account. They seem to be doing okay, though. I mean, they're making tons of money. So is Disney. I've calculated Disney's making like $800 million a month based on Scott Galloway's numbers. $800 million. I just bought stock. I told my sister to go buy Disney stock because she's a huge Disney fan, like 4 years ago when it was $100 a share. And then it was flat for like 4 years. I'm like, Disney bought Marvel and Star Wars. How is their stock flat? This doesn't make any sense. They're making billions of dollars on Star Wars. What's going on? It took 4 years for them to finally get that Disney streaming service out, and then it took off. It's up 75% this year. I bought it at like 170 because I'm dumb, but I still think it's going to go to 250. I think Disney's going to 250 just because they got $800 million of reoccurring revenue every single month from Disney Plus and kids that watch cartoons on loop. And Mandalorian is so freaking good. Mandalorian's so freaking good. I probably should get some reference for this. While I look up reference, I'm going to think about more things to complain about in George Clooney's Midnight. Same thing with George Clooney's other movie that had to do with space, Gravity. Neat idea, but the physics were totally broken. Like, if you're going to have a satellite... Look, like, as soon as they said this is Hubble and it's right next to the ISS, I was like, I'm out. I'm out. They're on totally different orbits. I agree with Neil deGrasse Tyson. He watched that movie and laughed his head off. He's like, this is super stupid. They could have made a good movie with the real science and the real physics. Or they could have invented a different named space station and a different named telescope. Call it the George Clooney telescope and the Sandra Bullock space station. They could be on parallel orbits, and I would believe that. I'd be like, okay, cool, this is a new thing that happens to be close to each other. But Hubble orbits this way, and the ISS orbits this way. There's no way you're flying from one to the other, ever, in a spacesuit. No way. And like, what? It's just like, it's like you listen to a good storyteller, and a good storyteller doesn't give you holes that you can punch. A good storyteller doesn't give you a gap that you're willing to punch a hole through. And Clooney's movies just give me so many darn gaps. The one exception would be like, what was the movie he did it when he was like a divorcee father or a widower on the island of Hawaii? I actually like that movie. The Descendants, something like that. I think he's a very cerebral, deep guy who cares a lot about family. Man, I'm trying to go through my reference and look for some kind of greenery or something that can give me a little bit of inspiration. I have a folder of like houses from the Pacific Northwest that I really like this kind of stuff. These are super cool, super cool. Just have a massive reference folder of just all kinds of images from all over. I am not finding quickly what I want. This is why Google's amazing, because you can just oh, here's an idea. Okay, I found some rocks. This is a picture of some rocks from Mars. That's kind of cool. What happens if we took this and created a new, like did some color shifting on it? Made it kind of different and alien or something? It's kind of cool. Kind of weird looking. Something like that. And that's just to give us a little bit of inspiration for what rocks might look like. It's kind of cool. Kind of neat. So we're seeing the visual language of these rocks are these like broken down, divided cracks and stuff. And all this horizontal lines are pretty neat for describing the pattern of sediment and layering it within the rock. And then occasionally it like rotates and cracks a different way. So that's kind of cool. Let's just get some of those details repainted in here. So let's give it a little highlight. Just a little inspiration. Not really color reference, more shape reference. And instead of moss, this is just like a dust that's settled here. And that's kind of cool. Maybe we have some of this dust from the ground that's settled up in the cracks, the little gaps. Drew, what's going on in your day, man? You working on anything? I don't even know what you do for a living. You could PM me what you do for a living. I don't even know what that is. I figure you're work from home or working out of a car or something like that if you could tune in. Maybe you're stay-at-home dad. I don't know what you do. That's cool. Look, I didn't work for a whole year. I didn't have a proper job, so I've got just so much more empathy for people who are without work. And I've also learned that I can live. I don't know about you, but I can live on a lot less money. I was spending so much money because of anxiety. Anxiety from work, anxiety about projects, anxiety about like, oh, does my boss like me or not? Do I have a future? Can I date in the game industry? Like I went from this world of plenty in art school where the ratio of guys to girls was like 1 to 6 to the game industry where it's 15,000 men to 30 women. I'm like, oh, am I gonna be able to date ever again? And then dating in COVID, it's like, pff, odds in the game industry are pretty good compared to dating during COVID. To my other single friends out there, I know what you're talking about. Friends of mine, friends and relations, and if you happen to date me in this year, I apologize. We can talk about that later. We can talk about that offline, or you could yell at me online. I don't care at this point. I think COVID has worn down so many graces, and again, I don't think 2020 was nearly as bad as some of the snowflakes make it out to be. Like, oh, worst. I love the meme right now that's going around that's got people complaining about COVID and then flashback to the year 1349 when the Black Death is killing everybody. Like 50% of Europe is dead or casualtied from the Black Death of all ages. I mean, we were It's amazing humanity's gotten this far, man. I was thinking about it last night, and like I wasn't smoking anything. I was just thinking, like, why are things the way they are? And let's take a positive look at it. What if something good is happening that's leading us to destabilizing ourselves? And I was thinking about, like, okay, Manellis Kellis, who was on the Lex Fridman podcast talking about the evolution of the brain. There's the neocortex in humans that separates us from all other species. The neocortex versus the primal, like, old cortex. I don't know what that's called. The brain stem kind of primitive mind stuff. And I'm wondering, like, if we're actually getting wildly smarter. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if, well, 2020 human beings are the least primal Homo sapiens that's ever been. Like, and wonder if that's accelerating. And I wonder if the gap between the logical, rational Homo sapien brain is distancing itself in a faster pace than uh, than any time ever before. And this is something like, Nate and I worked on this project, Ashes of the Singularity, and I didn't read the original book that was inspired by, but they talk about the idea of the singularity being this technical point when we can't predict what the future is going to be. But what if it was a biological point? What if we just reached a point of evolution where our biology is changing faster than we can predict? What's Drew saying? A lot of people are texting stuff. Drew says, question I've been meaning to ask. You ever just go back into pencil and eraser type drawings in Photoshop? Not using all the fancy options, only draw and erase. I think that's a great question. I do have a sketchbook downstairs. I do not draw in it as much as I should. When I was out in Denver, I did do some doodling. I keep little sketchbooks a lot, and I'll just doodle and journal and stuff in my little sketchbooks. I'll usually keep one of these in my pockets. There's some fun drawings. There's some windmills. There's a rifle. There's a barn. There's a cow. Random stuff. This was from last year. Commando dude. So Drew, to answer your question, like my proportions with pen and paper, I think are always better off the gate. I think it's just because I've been drawing with pen and paper twice as long as I've been drawing with digital, and there's just a different textural feedback to it. But what I don't do, and which I should do, is do more scanning of like draw on paper, scan it or photograph it, and then bring it into Photoshop and paint over it. That's what I really should be doing. It's like some of my, here's a barista I think I had the hots for one day at Starbucks. Like, I think this is a pretty good proportional drawing. I think it's Mackenzie. She was fun. She's someone really social. Always liked to talk to me when I used to come in there last year. Here's a little fun one. It's a fun one for you guys. Boom! Thing stuck out. Love it. Boom. Oh, we got an Apache gunship in here. That's cool. gunships. Fun stuff for you guys. What else is Drew asking? Drew says, finally watching on a lunch break. All right, let's keep this up. Drew says, work from home since Feb. I'm an IT analyst. Oh, hot damn. Hot damn. IT. Drew says, but I've gotten into melting metals recently, and that's been fun. Hey, who doesn't like playing with a little fire now and again? Where there's smoke, there's fire. Yeah, I saw you, were you melting aluminum cans on the live stream the other night? That looked fun. Dude, I used to love to make fires in the woods with my family and friends. So we had a little fire pit near the house, and we had all kinds of trees in Connecticut, so we always had some fresh firewood. Always some trees falling down. My uncle would come down with his chainsaw and an axe. We'd chop up the wood, and we'd have firewood for like 3 or 4 years. Love that stuff. Really miss Connecticut because of those trees, old trees and old woods and stone walls in the woods stuff. So we would have our root beers and throw the root beer bottles in the fire, get it real hot, and watch them kind of fold in on themselves. Like, wow, that fire is so hot, the glass is melting. Whoa. Drew says, yup, and copper. Dude, what's the price of copper these days? Isn't it through the roof? Isn't it like pennies cost more to make than what they're worth or something? I know you reuse pennies, though, so that kind of makes sense. It makes me wonder like what the future of currency is going to be. I was surprised how many people still use regular currency. My buddy Steve Eggery, we were talking about market stuff, and some of the big winners this year, I mean, of course, the common big winner this year in the stock market is Tesla, but Amazon, Google, a lot of big tech firms, Zoom, all made a lot of money this year in the stock market. And by make money, I mean really like just the price of their shares went up. But a share in a company is a form of currency. Scott Galloway now is talking about how Bitcoin might be a good bet against inflation. I don't know if I agree with that. I think Bitcoin is way too volatile. And I also just don't like how much power it takes to run. I think the actual cost to humanity for that kind of currency is too high with the level of our computer technology. But that's for another broadcast. Some of the other big winners are Visa, like Visa, MasterCard, any kind of credit service, like digital money service. I think PayPal's up too. And it's because there's almost 50% of transactions using it now. I didn't realize that we hadn't already breached that point. So before this year, the majority of transactions were done with cash or traditional banking. I was kind of surprised by that. Now, if you talk about amount of money, I guess it depends on what you measure. Because if you're measuring actual transactions, Tom gives hot dog stand $5. Is that a transaction? Does that weigh the same as Tom buys a house for $200,000? Are those like both one transaction? Or are they talking about like in terms of dollars spent, how much is done digital through a credit card company versus wiring money through a bank? I don't know that, but I'd be very interested. I'd be very interested. I mean, you can't buy a house with a credit card to my knowledge, unless you're some billionaire with a platinum credit card. Something like that. Well, thanks for tuning in, dudes. Thanks for tuning in, hanging out. Makes it more fun for me. Makes it exciting to have conversations. I can look over and check on the chat and not feel so alone. So that's one reason I encourage other people to stream as well. It just helps with the loneliness. Helps with the loneliness. So what I'm thinking about these rocks is there's really 3 layers. There's the bulk shape of the sediment rock itself. Then there's going to be the crack within the rock, and then there's going to be the things that are sitting on top of the rock. And that'll be dust and dirt, decaying leaves, and then moss and vines. And I think moss will be mostly underneath the vines. I think the vines will kind of come over and over the top. And I'm using the vines to draw the contour of the surface. So I'm imagining that it's a give and take between like everything's evolving together. Like I have a general idea of the rock, then I just want to draw a fun line, and that fun line inspires a contour that then I can shade and then darken and do all kinds of different stuff with. All kinds of different stuff. else is going on? What else is going on in the world right now? I'm not going to talk about politics. I'm not going to talk about that. I think human potential. I feel like I was riffing about something with the mind earlier that I wanted to keep going on. George Clooney movie pissed me off. What else pissed me off? He was going through the Arctic, and in one scene in the movie, he falls into some water. And look, if you're in the Arctic and you get wet, and you don't get medevaced or into a tent you're dead. You're dead, dude. And he lives through this thing. I was like, no, you're not Superman. That's gonna kill you. That's just a dumb thing to have in the script. If you want to have adversity, sure, that's fine. Like make something adverse, but don't make it so absurdly difficult to survive that it, just takes me out of the. It broke the immersion over and over. That movie, it broke the immersion because I didn't believe what was happening in the script. Just didn't believe it. I understand the value of science. I love science fiction. It asks the question, what could be? What is the possible future? And it provides a platform for interesting storytelling. You can come up with a fictional setting where you can put human beings in absurd situations that we can't relate with or can't abide by. But for the audience to believe it, I think you still have to maintain a lot of other common things that aren't too strange, such as language, customs, culture, appreciations of things. And I think that's why Star Trek, one of the reasons that Star Trek works so well, especially in the next generation, is because Picard is this Renaissance man who keeps bringing in referencing history from the old world into the new world. So it's drawing every episode, there's some kind of line of connection back to the real world that exists that is like a root anchor point that the audience can hold on to and go for this ride with the creator of the show. As long as I have something I can hold on to, some kind of truth, and be it Shakespeare, be it a piece of artwork, be it a piece of poetry, literature, something that Picard references, or like a human interaction between cast members on that show, something that's familiar and relatable. And then I can go on this journey of aliens and robots and warp speed and AI and all that other kind of stuff. I gotta have something to hold on to. Hopefully, you friends and audience members haven't had to deal with people like this too often. But have you ever met a compulsive liar? Somebody who just can't stop coming up with lies to make themselves sound more interesting? I've known two. One in college was kind of famous among our friends because the stories were just so ridiculous. And I wanted to believe some of these stories from this person. I really wanted to because they were super interesting and they involved space and the military and founding all these companies. And at first I just assumed that this person was just wildly rich, like just some wildly rich person. And, daddy had so much money that, whatever the kid wanted to do, they just funded. And then later I just realized, no, this is impossible. The amount of stuff that this person's saying that they do is just completely nuts. But I suspend my disbelief for a lot of different things. And if you give me something that's just so absurd, like to say something that's so absurd, and like the absurd thing he said was he wore a watch that his father wore in space. He had a watch that his dad wore in space. And I was like, man, that's a hard one to believe. There has not been that many watches in space, in outer space. I know they exist. I know that there are like Rolex watches. I don't know if they're Submariners or whatever. They're like really expensive, really nice watches that are worn outside of flight suits. But I can't imagine anything that precious would be given to an 18-year-old college student so he could have a story to pick up chicks in Baltimore. I just didn't buy it. And that made everything else that this guy said just completely bullshit. Like, I don't believe anything you say anymore because that story is so absurd. Drew says I've known a couple people like that and the one-uppers too. Gotta take a call, but still watching. Enjoy your phone call. Yeah, I'm trying. I'm bad at the one-uppers, man. I thought that the way people have conversations is to tell a story and then someone else tells a story and then someone else tells a story, and that was what you're supposed to do. Like you were supposed to come up with one-uppers. And as I'm getting older, I'm realizing that actually it's more important to just listen. Like, let people tell their stories and celebrate them for their stories. It's more important to be an audience member, man. Or equally as important. Like, someone's got to tell a story, but for every person telling a story, there's got to be 2 or 3 or 4 people paying attention, listening and laughing along or asking questions. That makes the whole experience more meaningful. If it's just one-uppers, it doesn't make the person feel special anymore. It took me a long time to realize that. Like, something about back to society, back to human society. Like, um, I know older generations can criticize the younger generation that we're taking so much longer to grow up, and I agree. It does feel like, not only does it feel this way, but it looks this way too. Like, people who are in their 50s now don't look like they're 50. Like, Joe Rogan looks like Joe Rogan looks better than World War II vets coming back home who are in their late 20s, right? Something There's something going on there, whether it's eating or fitness or something's going on. You go look at a yearbook, right? And like, high school kids from 1950, 60, 70 like look like fully grown adults by their senior year. And I look at when I go visit college students now, they all look like children to me. Like, 20-year-old college kids look like children. Now, is that something psychologically just in myself, or is there something happening across the board? Maybe I need to, like, unbiasedly look at a yearbook from 1945 and a yearbook from 2020 and, like, have a comparative analysis with a bunch of portrait artists and talk, like, is there a difference here, or do people still look the same at the same age, or are we aging slower? Is there something biologically going on with Western society where we're growing up so soft? Like, I always thought it was funny when I was a kid and I was a Catholic kid. I would go to church and we would shake the hand of the Monsignor or the priest at the end of the Mass. And I remember telling my mom when I was 8, like, wow, Monsignor Ty's hands are so soft. They're really nice to shake Monsignor Ty's hands. They're super soft. My mom, like, had some kind of joke, like, oh, they don't do any work. You know, the hardest thing they do all day with their hands is shake the hands of the patrons. So I kind of think we're all looking like babies now because we're not actually enduring the hardships of the world. Whereas maybe if you looked at some Amish kids, and I was down at the Amish market last weekend, love the Dutch market. Get a pretzel log, make your life better. Be happy, eat some pretzels, eat some soft Dutch market pretzels covered in cheese and hot dogs. Do it for the good of America. Do it for the Amish. God love the Amish, man. I'm really curious what their death rate is with COVID. I'm assuming it's nothing because they deal with farm animals all day and their immune system's worth $1 million. Dude, they should just start doing drugs, like blood transfusions between the Amish and the Mennonites and nursing home patients or something. It would probably kill them, though. I mean, the amount of stuff living in, farmer blood. Correct me if I'm wrong. If Chris Fesco, my cousin, tunes in, who runs the Fesco Farm up in Skinny Atlas region of upstate New York, I mean, imagine those immune systems are just tough as nails. I mean, you're out milking the cows at 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning, something like that. I think you're going to get, your skin's going to get toughened up and aged. Also, we're not smoking the way previous generations did. Look, I admit it, Jason. I've been smoking some cigarettes this year because that's like, when stress is really tough, you got to have something to take the edge off. And I'm grateful that I did not smoke as a kid. So that way I can have a cigarette or two when I'm in my late 30s. And I still got this beautiful young skin. Yeah, cigarettes age you, man. Being out in smoke, fire, all that kind of stuff. But I think what if on the upside, what if it's taking us longer to age, but we're building something that's actually better? It's like building a cathedral. You can't build a cathedral in 5 years. It takes like 40 years for some of these ancient cathedrals to be built. But then they last for hundreds of years. Until some contractor decides to leave a torch going and burns the whole roof off. But what if we're building a smarter mind? I admire Generation X right now, who I have siblings in Gen X. The level of chill across the board, where I think millennials are freaking out, I think boomers are freaking out and annoying. Look, I definitely believe that there are some Gen X Karens out there, for sure. My cousin Karen is one of them. Hi, Karen. Love you, miss you. Hope you're doing okay. Sorry, I never finished your illustration. I should get to that. She had a storybook that she was writing. Sounded something like Back to Neverland, Return to Oz, something like that. By the way, if you want to watch something screwed up and weird, Return to Oz in Disney. I watched that as a kid and it haunted me. I had nightmares of that movie. And I watched it again and I'm like, yeah, this is a nightmare-inducing movie. This is a super nightmare-inducing movie. The lead character is a really young kid, like 10 or something, and is surrounded by scary clowns on the Wheelers are terrifying. Terrifying. That's a weird movie. I mean, I applaud Disney for sharing it. I mean, Disney seems to be airing their dirty laundry in a way, but I kind of respect them for it because I I didn't think that they would. I didn't think that they would share a lot of these older films that have a lot of I don't know what to say, in uncouth, politically incorrect subject matter. But you can't whitewash history. You got to go watch the history, man. You got to know where we came from. If you don't know where we came from, it might not make sense why we are the way they are. Like, started watching a little bit of Netflix. Had this thing called LA 92, and I tried watching some of that last night, and it was just too sad and depressing to get into. A little too sad and depressing to get into. And people criticize the militarization of the police force, and they blame the militarization for the police force for the violence within the inner cities. And it's a chicken and the egg question. I think if if you don't think that the militarization of the police force is unwarranted, then I don't think you maybe have considered the amount of firepower that organized crime has or had, especially the bank robbers in the 20s and 30s like Dillinger and Capone. So I always think about it as a reaction, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. I love that movie with Johnny Depp as Dillinger. What was it called? What was that one called? With Christian Bale as the G-Man. I thought that was cool. Oh, or The Highwaymen with Bonnie and Clyde. That was good. Highwaymen. Kevin Costner. I think that was one of my favorite roles he did. I like old Kevin Costner a lot. Hidden Figures was great. Loved Hidden Figures. I love any NASA like feel good movie. It's pretty good. I'm having fun drawing trees. This is good and relaxing and pretty cool. Hope this is fun for you guys. Just doodling and talking, sharing what I'm thinking about. Checking the notes. Jackie and Adam and 8 other people liked the stream. Something like that. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Thanks for sending likes. Feels good. It's I once heard that it takes, for every 7 positive compliments, 1 negative compliment brings it back down to 0. So negativity is worth like 7 kudos and 1 negativity of the same strength. It's kind of like Star Wars. Like there's a million Jedi and like 1 Darth Sidious, and he can fight all those dudes. Like negativity is so powerful. The power of the dark side of the Force. Yeah, it's effective. It really stands out. I mean, one of the ironies of dating is what you might read or have heard from those pickup artists like 10, 15 years ago who talk about if you want to talk to a girl at a bar, make fun of her. Like, say something negative. They're more likely to react because what you're trying to get is a reaction. Like, if you're just nice and polite, chick might not care about you. So if you can make fun of her for something, she's like, wait, what are you saying? What are you saying? What do you mean? You actually have better odds of getting into a conversation. I think it's messed up, but I also think it's true. I've seen it. I've seen it. Don't like the way the world is, but that's the way the world is. Something like that. So what about loneliness? Like maybe it just takes one person in your life to make you feel not lonely for a moment. But if you don't have that person, what's the ratio of not feeling lonely in terms of digital friends and relations? It might be like 7, 8, and 1, 9 to 1. I'll tell you right now, I'm not thinking about being lonely so much because I'm hanging out with Drew and Nate. You know, definitely takes the edge off. Kind of the way that cigarette just takes the edge off a little bit. Smoking a cigarette, you're not thinking about what you had for dinner. I don't know. You're not thinking about like who's with you at the moment. You're just thinking about that fire entering your lungs and like how crazy it is. I was having a cigarette and I was thinking about how like this little bit of fire isn't strong enough to live on its own, but I can breathe through this tube and suddenly the fire comes alive. Like I'm doing CPR for a little bit of fire, and how cavemen must have thought like making fire was creating life. Like fire is, it moves, it breathes, it can spread, it leaves behind waste. Like, wow, what if fire is a living organism, but it's not alive? Is it? What do we think life is? Well, it moves like something that's alive. It breathes like something that's alive. It emits light like the sun. Just started going down the mental rabbit hole. Like, what does it mean to have created fire? Is that the way men create life? Because men can't birth children, but we can make fire, and fire is alive. Maybe that's where we're all little pyromaniacs a little bit. See, this is my Dan Carlin voice coming out. I just listened to Dan Carlin this morning, and he does the thing where he changes his voice a little bit. It's like, what about this? 1945, Solomon Islands. General MacArthur sees disaster over the horizon. That's the Dan Carlin voice. What gave me shivers is when he starts talking about the combined fleet. The combined, like Task Force 64, 500 warships, 7 main carriers, 11 escort carriers the United States Navy puts together to go fight Japan. How one task force has more ships and more carriers than the entire Pacific did 3 years prior. It just gives me shivers, like thinking about the scale of that kind of stuff. It's really interesting. It's really interesting to think about how, I mean, Carlin spells this out, to think about that, like in mid 43. No, World War II generally is considered 1939 to 1945. And the Axis were winning for the first 2 years, 39 to 41. And then 43 is really the turning point, when the United States war production is at full capacity and they're just pumping out ships and planes and resources and food and bullets and bombs and everything. And the Russian war machine is fully moving. The point in like mid 43, like June 43, Japan and Germany are on the retreat at that point. But the war still goes on for 2 more years. But in summer of 43, the Axis knows they're not winning this, but they didn't surrender. And I think that's a really important lesson about human, like the negative potential of humanity. And that's what I can imagine like modern anti-fascists are really concerned about, is that potential of like psychotic groupthink nationalist behavior that resulted in the lives of tens of millions dead and starved, from 43 to 45. Needless death because of ideologies that should have gone the way of the dodo bird hundreds of years ago. What's up, Drew? Drew's back. Glad to have you back, Drew. Glad to have you back. So that's why Carlin's valuable. I'm going to send him $5 today. I think I'm going to send him $5 and say, dude, thanks for this Supernova in the East series, because I learned a ton. I love hearing stories, especially about war stories while I'm working out. It makes me want to work out a little harder, because I'm in no shape to go fight a war. I can't do a pull-up. I would love to be able to do a pull-up again, though. Or ever. Closest I ever was to doing a pull-up was when I was working out at Earth Treks. My boy Steve wants to go work out at Earth Treks. I used to go with my boy Matty Crumrine, and my nurse friend Heather Lancaster. Heavy. Hope you're doing well, Heavy, out there. I don't know if you watched the live streams. Heavy got me turned on to something called Profs and Pints, which this week is going to be talking about the Tet Offensive. Very excited about that. It's a DC thing. I told my niece, who's down in DC, she should go check it out, but then COVID happened. So this is some kind of live stream. I am planning on tuning in to Profs and Pints, the Tet Offensive, and drinking a Corson Dunk. That is my plan for whatever night that is. I don't even know when it is. Drew says, Earth Trek's the climbing place? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So I showed up. I was 255, and I'm like, I want to, lose some weight. And they're like, you're gonna get strong being here. Just come regularly, and you're gonna get stronger. And I was like, okay, whatever. And they trick you. They trick you into getting stronger. It's fascinating by watching other people climb up rocks, which looks simple, but then you go to try it yourself, and you're like, this is really hard. Over the course of a year, if you go 2 or 3 times a week, suddenly your forearms become jacked. Jacked. Just, I felt like I could crush walnuts with my fingertips after pulling up 250 pounds of Tom just up these little bits. And before I knew it, I was starting to pull up boom, get all of me up with just one arm. With a little bit of support from my, it's like, dude, this is like stealth getting stronger. They trick you into getting diesel because I've never seen people in better shape than at the climbing gym. Unless you're on some rocks out in Yosemite with some people, or you're watching some climbers get changed next to a rock. You don't see people that trim, that fit, that low body weight. I mean, I think even if you're in a big gym, like a muscle building gym, you're seeing some thick people. When you're at the climbing gym, you are seeing individual strands of the trapezius and latissimus back muscles on people. It's amazing. I would just hang out with a little sketchbook and just draw climbers and their crazy anatomy and all their sinewy and trim muscles and 3% body fat. Drew says, my buddy's a climber and is jacked. Jacked, right? But they can't be too heavy. Chuck Pressburg was talking about in the Rangers. For the longest time, Army Rangers were really fit, really trim guys. And only recently have they started getting huge. The guy who trains me in shooting stuff is retired, I want to say sergeant. I could be wrong about your rank, Gary. I don't know if you watched this, but Gary Melton of Paramount Tactical is huge in muscle ways. I was on my scale, and I might have 280 pounds of Tom's got 74 pounds of muscle. Is what my scale tells me. I don't know how accurate that is. That scale I got at Walmart. I don't know how it figures out how much muscle's in a Tom. Some kind of weird electrostatic equation. I like to think I got 70 pounds of muscle I'm carrying around. I believe that. But Gary's got to have 140 pounds of muscle. I think Gary's 6'2", I would guess he's 210, 220. And all but 40 pounds of that is just beefcake. Beefcake. Special Forces guy. Green Beret. Iraq veteran. And that's a recent thing. The idea of the huge, jacked, muscle-bound American commando is something I think Richard Marcinko and the SEAL Team 6 creator came up with. Dick Marcinko realized in the 80s that in order to carry a 200-pound, that if you're going to be climbing rope ladders in the North Sea to secure oil rigs that have been captured by terrorists, or rescuing a ship crew, if Somali pirates have taken an oil tanker and are threatening to blow it up and close the Suez Canal or something like that, you got to be able to pull up some major weight to climb those rope ladders. And so Dick Marcinko, who founded SEAL Team 6, was telling in his book Rogue Warrior that he expected his SEALs to be able to bench 400 pounds. Bench 400 and squat over 5. That might be an exaggeration, but some of these dudes are freaking huge. And I think that's when things started to change. From the Army used to care about the long march being very lightweight because every pound that was on your body was a pound less you could carry on your back. And then you get these second and third order casualty effects of busted knees, sprained ankles, just marching casualties when you have heavier load, heavy load. And this is one of the problems. I mean, I'm going to talk about it because the politics can't talk about it, between men and women in the infantry. That load, when you have straight legs under pelvises, it's easier to handle a heavy load than someone who doesn't have straight legs, which most women don't have straight legs. Drew says, you're right, though. He's slim but all muscle. Yeah, jacked. So they realize, like, when you start carrying armor around and equipment and ammo and guns and stuff, like, and you're pulling that up and over walls and ladders and things, like, you just gotta be super strong for that. And then to be fighting on the way up too. So now with mechanized warfare, troops are getting flown into places or driven to places, and then they want to be overwhelmingly beefcake when they get there. So during the global war on terror, you started seeing the entrance of CrossFit into the military. And SEALs, Rangers, and Special Forces guys just got huge. Pressburg was talking about it. Love Chuck Pressburg, retired. Is he Sergeant Major or first? I think he's Sergeant Major. Asymmetric Warfare Group and 3rd Bat Rangers, 75th. 75th Rangers. My cousin was 75th Rangers. Cousin, I guess I shouldn't give his name out. I'm not going to mention his name right now. Much respect. All right, so we've spent some time drawing some rocks, and that's kind of fun. Little gap right here. Story time with Tom Tom. Just sharing some philosophy, sharing some thoughts. Just huge. But like the downside is like some of these guys who are uber jacked, like they're not gonna be able to run. Like if they're not getting helicopter out of a situation, they're gonna be like just super I don't know. It's gonna be hard to exfil yourself, I guess, if you're super heavy. I think famous Navy SEAL Marcus Luttrell talks about how strong they were in his book Lone Survivor, talking about his team got caught up in the mountains and ambushed. And one of the advantages, I learned this in football, of being jacked is you get some padding, like it protects your bones. And you can take a little bit more punishment. And those guys were getting multiple gunshot injuries, and they just kept fighting. So the more beefcake you have, the more punishment you can take. Muscle is like this. It ain't Kevlar, but it's something that is between your vital joints, organs, and nervous system, and the punishment you're going to take. So I want to drop the contrast down just a little bit over here. Let's get some blue. Let's get some blue. That's fun. I'm pretty pleased with these rocks. They're fun. Kind of neat. It's fun to do. Get some more of this shape. Maybe it's like a little chunky rock shape. Just put a little crack. Take a look at that. It's kind of a pyramid type thing. Just a couple blocky shapes. A little detail just to give it a hint. Cool. That's fun. Got some moss. What's interesting now, I've got more detail in this back area, and I need to increase the detail in the foreground area too. So we'll just have some fun here. I like the trick of making it the distal edge of some moss a little bit brighter. It's like a Fresnel kind of effect. Well, this is fun, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for tuning in today. If you're watching this on YouTube, thanks for checking it out later. Since I've moved the webcam right in front of my face, I'm less interested in buying a professional microphone. I was thinking about that. So Drew, I'm glad to hear that you like watching on your lunch break. So I don't know that I'll be able to do the midweek streams in the future. I'm thinking about just a Saturday morning or a Sunday morning stream. I like the idea of Sunday morning, but I feel like you guys are churchgoers. I feel like you and the family are church people, but I'm not a church person. So I was thinking about making these hangouts my form of sermon and spiritual hangout in the future. The evolution of the Tomcast. It might go to Twitch in 2021, and it might become a weekly, regularly scheduled event. Something I'm thinking about doing. This year I wasn't prepared for that. Just wanted to keep it loose, go whatever way the creative process took me. Let's go a little bit mintier here. Let's get some cooler greens, cooler desaturated greens. Be some browns, because like I think the bottom, sometimes you get the bottom edge of a moss is a little bit visible, where some dirt's collected over time, like some leaves have decayed and become dirt. I was on a little walk there today around the Moncton area by the NCR Trail. There's a little waterfall. I think it's off exit 30. If you get off exit 31 or 33, it's along York Road between those 2 points, north of Hereford, but south of the border, the PA border. And there's a couple things along this trail that I really like. One, there's a tree growing through some big rocks, and I love the idea of being the rock, or being the tree that can grow through a rock. I love that idea. Maybe we'll just like, maybe we'll work something in. Maybe this is a root here. Maybe we have some kind of like little scraggly tree that's working its way out through the rock. Might be fun. Happy little tree. I love the idea of the tree, the heroic biological organism that finds a way, just a little bit of dirt, and like has its roots, and they're making these little feeling lines. They're trying to figure out where the gaps are, and over time this tree gets stronger and stronger and stronger, and just like water eroding a river stream, it's like this tree is forcing the rock itself to break apart. And I love I don't know what to call it, the mantra, this meditative thought, like being the tree that grows through the rock. Be like something, I imagine Bruce Lee saying, like, be water, my friends. Be the tree who grows through the rock and cracks the rock in half. I don't know if you want to crack the rock completely in half, because if the rock completely cracks, then you have nothing supporting your own vertical growth. You need something to hold on to. So it's almost a symbiotic relationship. At some point, that tree is holding the rock together. As the rock has cracked, the tree is not holding it like a pair of hands. Drew says, I do like watching from the side and see you working on the pad. Okay, so where the camera angle is a different angle. So when the camera angle was over here, the audio just is much weaker. It's just quieter, and I would need to project a lot louder. So that would be the big reason for getting the headset. That's like a $500 investment. I was looking into it. Don't got that coin right now. Maybe mid-year. Drew says, not much church anymore. Still churchgoer. Sunday mornings would work. Drew says, I think Twitch would boost your followers. You have good content that could help others not on your Facebook. Thank you. Thank you. But I like this direct connectivity that we have. Like that I have some friends and fam who chime in every once in a while. People I do know, that I can quickly recognize it. Yeah, Drew says not too much weaker, but it is a difference. Yeah. When I was watching back the videos from earlier in the year, I'm like, wow, I'm really quiet. I don't want you to have to turn up your volume versus every other digital media, YouTube, Spotify, all that kind of stuff. Not an audio guy. Not an audio guy. I got to reconnect with Sven and learn what the hot audio stuff is. I bug Sven like once every Weasel Zone. Shout out to Weasel Zone, Sven, Camera, and Lauren. He's hip on whatever the cool audio is. I bug him like once every quarter. Hey, what's the cool audio stuff? What should I be listening? What should I be getting into? This is a little too high contrast over here, I think. This might intercept with the character. Okay, it does. So I don't want this tree getting in the way of my lady Mando. So we're gonna change this thing I just painted a little bit. We'll just paint over this last bit of that, and also we'll dim this down. So I'm just gonna pick the background color and go to 60% and light it down a bit. Just paint over with the background atmospheric, just to take some of the contrast out of it. Working through. Just want to give a little highlight to this too. So let's pick a minty color, desaturate it. When I say minty, I'm talking about adding white to something. We like mint leaves are a little bit on the whiter side of green. They're not as saturated. Something like that. Let's put some mushroom shapes. I'll tell you this, now that the election is mostly over, I know there's something going on in Georgia right now. I feel much warmer towards my fellow man. I feel like I'm ready to reconnect with some people, and maybe partially that's because I've unfollowed so many of my friends who are making political posts. I know the age-old adage about Facebook, it's complain book. People just tune into, they use their status update just to bitch about something, and I understand if you're hurting, but if you're just talking about the media, it just seems kind of annoying. It makes me not want to listen to Facebook and not connect. So hopefully there's less political whining on Facebook, and we can just talk about us. So I'm more eager to hear how people are actually doing. How are you doing? What are you actually doing? What's everybody actually up to? How are they personally dealing with the loneliness and other associated problems from extended lockdowns and pandemic responses and stuff? And less like more John F. Kennedy. Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. I'm kind of more interested in that type of stuff moving forward. So what are individual people doing for their communities and stuff? How do I feel about this? I like the trees on the right a little better than the trees on the left. I think it's this color. This color right here is maybe too bright or saturated. I'm just going to take some of this background blue and come a little darker and a little less saturated and go 50%, maybe 60% over this whole thing. And that should knock it down just a little bit. And then some dark shadow side. What's this color that's working over here? I like this. Okay, it's desaturated red. This feels a little thick. Feels a little too thick, a little too chunky. Too chunky up there. This is too saguaro, cactus, sombrero cactus. I don't know what it is. Actually, I just don't like the tip. Let's just paint over the whole thing. Paint over the whole business. That's a word I adopted from Nathan Heaslet. Business. What's all this business? I think that's a Midwestern thing. North Dakota. What's all this business? It's when you want to be polite and not say bullshit. You can say business. Thanks for educating me, Nathan, on that. When you're too polite to curse but need to have something that begins with a B and has some S's in it. I feel like New Yorkers just have angry, stuck in traffic mentality all the time. Like, I would not be surprised if there's a correlation between like road rage and vulnerability to COVID. Overlap of the Venn diagram. Overlap of those circles. Drew said we would still follow you on Twitch. Thank you. So when I tried Twitch and I was watching Joe's Puzzletini time, something that she mentioned to me is that it's hard to see people's names and remember who's who because of the handle system. And that's something nice about Facebook, because I see your actual names. It's just easier. It's like going into a meeting, everyone's got the little sticker on their chest that says, "Hi, my name is Tom Tom." That's just easy and cool. Like sometimes it's if with enough time, of course, it's cool to get to know handles too, but it's not fun as a presenter to say, "Thanks for your like, Howard Johnson 57793 Leet Operator Tango 6 Spoonwater 94." Look, your handle might be cool for you, but trying to read your weird handle with numbers, letters, and ampersands in the middle of a stream is really hard. So I like what Isaac had going on yesterday in his stream on Adobe Live. He had a host who was moderating the broadcast, reading comments and asking questions while Isaac did the painting, demonstrating, and answering questions. That's sort of the format I've had also when I do lectures at Micah. Thank you, Jackie Ross, for inviting me to do a couple lectures for her students this year, and Steve Manili. Those were a ton of fun, and I hope the students got something out of it. But having there's a host, and then there's the presenter. I could see there being a thing later. Brandon's here. What's up, B Don? What's up, B? How you doing? How you doing? What up? I'm excited for future adventures. I'm excited. I think we got a UFC. I think Poirier McGregor is this month. Ah, Drew, I see your message. Your direct message finally came through. Interesting. Nope, you didn't see it on the stream. Lol, I'm a supplier. Okay. Ah, got it. I won't read your position. Got it. I did not know that. We will talk more. Very cool. Very, very cool. I got a buddy, my buddy Josh is in IT at Metro Data, and he tells me a bunch of smart IT stuff. Did you ever watch the IT Crowd? I thought that was a pretty funny show back in the day. All right, I spent a lot of time with the background, and now the background is more detailed than the foreground. So that's a good time to switch back to our heroine here. KK. All right, let's do a little self-critique. Let's flip the canvas. Rotation, flip, horizontal. What do we got going on? The ground is a little ambiguous to me, but I want to be working on the character itself. I'm just going to draw a couple light lines. It's like some kind of fake grid type thing, just to kind of establish the ground as being kind of uneven. Something. Whoa. Moved. All right. Something is not quite right with the feet. Do I want to copy and edit some of this? We can try. Let's copy her again. I'm going to warp this knee. Something about it doesn't quite feel right. Let's do a quick transform. What if I just bring that foot in just a little bit and back? And then shrink it. Edit, transform, warp. Just shrink the bottom of the foot just a little bit. And then square it up towards the viewer. So I'm grabbing these handles on the transform tool, so that the toe is behind the heel along the ground plane. Before, after. It's subtle, but I think it's right. And then the other one needs to, I think, get bigger and come forward more too. And the knees probably need to face the viewer more. So let's try it. Just putting a little bit more foreshortening in the leg. So I'm holding the control button at the bottom of the transform and then moving it down and increasing the size by grabbing a corner and pulling it out just a little bit. This might be that's too big, so I'm going to undo that. Control Z, Control. Let's just hit the no-go button. And then let's try the warp. Transform warp. Grab this corner, just pulling the front of the foot towards the viewer just a little bit. Leaving the toe still up because we're doing a toe, like heel toe walk that a shooter would do to keep level as they're moving through a combat thing. Brandon says her left foot has a slightly odd roll to it. Yeah, I'm trying to do that heel toe roll walk thing that secret squirrels do. You know what I'm talking about, Brandon? Brandon, junkie. Did I hear someone say heroin? I'm glad Brandon says he's doing better now that he gets to enjoy the stream. Awesome, man. Glad to have you. Drew says he always sees it eventually. Okay, so I'm thinking that's maybe a little bit better. I don't think it's as dramatic as it used to be when we first started out. Okay, so you see how these legs are the same size and they feel very flat? I think by making some subtle proportion differences, now those are coming more forward. So before it was like the two legs are on the same plane, and I'm trying to get them to look like they're coming forward just a little bit, like this. Ignore my thumb. Something like that. What's that fun game that people used to play? The church, the steeple, something like that. You open the doors, all these little people. You can do that, something like this. I don't know. Way around. Here's the church, here's the steeple, open the doors, and there's all the little people. Remember that from being a kid. All right, so that's better. And I want to turn the knee pads more towards the viewer just a little bit. So we're just going to repaint this shape. Paint over. Because I'm doing a modified version of Mando knee stuff to be more 20th century, 21st century. So these are knee pads that are kind of mounted. They could be plates, actually. Should be metallic plates that are mounted off of the leg. What are they called? Greaves? Something like that. Nate, I don't know if you're still tuned in, but if you still share an office with Mr. Langmead, please say hi from me. Miss that guy. Good dude. Mr. Steve, nice guy. Talented giraffes person. Artiste. Likes to draw superheroes. Say hi to Mr. Weathers for me as well. Wonder if Mr. Weathers is still watching ForgottenWeapons.com. New video I'm really excited about today. Ian from ForgottenWeapons.com talks about the trade of the century. Some collector who was infamous for making these trades of historic firearms. Excited for that narrative today. Like that guy Ian, I got to meet him last year on a road trip in Tucson. Nice guy. Super nice guy. Genuinely interested in people. Former bartender. Okay, so knee pads are 2 different sizes. Try to fix that a little bit. Knee plates, Tom, plates. This one's probably a little dimmer. Brandon says, I'm turning in a tad late. Did you mention where she comes from? My guess is Ukraine. Well, I don't know where my friend KK comes from, who is featured in this drawing. She, in real life, looks like... KK looks like this. That's my friend KK. She's cool. Knew her from art school. I think she's from Pennsylvania. But I like the idea of a Ukrainian person. What I've noticed about Eastern European people is just the broadness of their face. Like I think Western Europeans have longer, thinner faces, and then Eastern Europeans have these broader cheekbones. There is a really funny picture of like some Chechen special unit, and I know it's politically incorrect to say. There's the joke that like white people think all black people look alike, and all black people think all black people think all white people look alike, and anyone who's not Chinese thinks all Asians look alike. Like there's that kind of thing. There is this picture of some military unit from Eastern Europe, and everyone looks exactly the same. Exactly the same. Like here's a marching picture of just some I don't know, North Koreans. I'm not really sure what country patch that is. And like, yeah, they're wearing the same uniform, but these faces look distinct. Well, these two faces look identical, but there's some distinction going on between these faces, right? And I have a photo. I have no idea where it is. I'm gonna find it by the end of the stream. And it's just comical how like a whole platoon of dudes look identical. And it's just because I'm not in tune with the subtleties and differences between like Eastern European peoples. Like I couldn't tell the difference between like a Bulgarian and a Slovak or something. Or maybe someone from Poland. I don't know. I don't know that I could detect the difference between someone from Kazakhstan and someone from Croatia. I'm not really sure about that. I would imagine Croatians look more Italian. Going through my reference folder. So I feel like it's in here somewhere. I know this is the least exciting part of the broadcast. Man, I'll put it on my Facebook later if I see it. I'll send it to each of you individually because it just cracks me up. A whole platoon of dudes looks exactly the same. Brandon saying Swedish. I buy that. This Drew says the suspense. I know it built up to something that I'm not going to be able to deliver on. Like imagine being in Star Wars and you're Obi-Wan Kenobi working with the clone army and they all look actually identical. That'd be really weird. What if you were a clone? Imagine serving in a unit or working in a place where all your coworkers look identical to you. Identical. Like it must. The experience of a twin, of an identical twin in the world must be so different and unique from anybody who does not have an identical twin. I think about the Symonds sisters I grew up with. I think Marie or Rachel are still Facebook friends of mine. I don't know if you tuned into the broadcast, but remember you two from church school, St. Leo's, back in the day. And it was like one of the biggest fascinations of the students in elementary school was like, how do you tell Rachel and Marie apart? Oh, I know which one's which. I know which one's which. I can't tell which one's which. They look the same. Very exciting to have the skill of knowing which one was Marie and which one was Rachel. And I think, if I remember right, Marie's face was slightly longer vertically, or maybe, and then Rachel was just the sportier, more tomboyish one. Like Marie, you would ask about makeup and dating, and Rachel, you'd be like, "How's soccer?" That's cool. I think I get you the photo, the kid updates lately. That's why I'm thinking about you guys, because someone's posting pictures of their kids. I'm like, wow, it's so weird that people I knew in high school are parents. That's strange. I'm just a man child who plays video games and draws for fun and entertainment. I'm not gonna have kids. I'm gonna have a clone army one day, Brandon. A clone army of Toms running around. The problem is I'm gonna screw up the chemistry, and they're all gonna be 3 feet high. So I have to have double. I have to have 2 for every one that I wanted to have. It's gonna be 400 Tom Toms running around. The horror, the absolute horror. What would you do if you have minions? If you had minions, Drew, what would you do? If you had 100 minions, what would you do with them? Drew says, I think all parents think that. I don't feel old enough for kids. Really? Yeah, it's bizarre that Corinne is like 11 now. Like, she's almost fully grown. That's super weird. Dustin and Nicole's kid. She's awesome. It's pretty funny. I feel extra talkative today because I know Nate's got me on his second monitor. He's listening to me in the background. I feel like I got to say words all the time, which is a problem in normal conversation. Like if you're at dinner table and you have the compelling urge to say words all the time, you're not going to get invited to a second dinner. It's like, man, that dude Tom just never stopped talking. Like, did he even have time to breathe between shoveling mouthfuls of mashed potatoes into his face? Yeah, you don't want to be that guy. But streaming, it's an asset. Just making noises with your mouth. I feel like that's a bit I'm riffing off of Joe Rogan. That's something Rogan talks about. He's figured out that that's funny to say. Making noises with our mouths. He has some bit about how like 11-year-olds shouldn't be, or high school students should not be affecting policy because they're not even done practicing talking yet. They're practicing talking. I cracked up when Rogan had that joke. He's right though. He's right, you know. Dude, I don't think I understood anything that my teachers were trying to tell me in high school. I remember the lessons, but none of it really made sense. I think I was just doing whatever they wanted me to do and like mimicking the kind of behavior they wanted me to do. But I didn't understand how important spelling is. I didn't really internalize the idea that, oh, maybe it makes communication easier between human beings so that we can have a polite and effective society if we don't screw up every other word by spelling it wrong. It's like, oh, I just know that my grades are better if I use the right letters in the right order. But I don't really think it's important. What I think is important is whether or not Yasmin likes me. That's what I think is important. Or Katie. What's Katie doing? Was she thinking about me right now? I'm thinking about her right now. I learned I had something in common with Weird Al Yankovic. Both Weird Al and I drew all the people in our class. And something he learned about him recently is he wanted to draw this chick that he sat behind in school, and he liked her a lot, but he didn't want to seem weird, so he drew everyone in the class, so it didn't seem weird that he kept drawing this one chick over and over again. I did the same thing. Did the same thing. It's like Thursday. Yasmin's like, God damn it, Tom's drawing me again. This is weird. But she sat like right behind me or right next to me. I don't remember what it was. Alphabetical order. Just happened to have a pretty girl sitting next to me. Got to draw her. That's what's important. And that's why I went to art school, because I couldn't stop drawing pretty people. Can't talk to them. Definitely can't date them. And lets me draw a picture. That's the safest thing to do. Safest thing to do. I think it's funny. I think it's funny to tell these stories like 30 years later, 20 years later, whatever it is. Between me and my boys here, I remember like once trying to like message her like, hey, should we hang out like in college? Hey, I'm in Baltimore. You're down in DC. You want to hang out? And just the one word answer back, no. It's like, aw. Come on, we're adults now. I'm not some creepy kid. I have a degree. I have a job. I'm some sort of getting normal. Can we hang out? No. So glad I can laugh about it these days. Plus, I'm glad I got to meet some really awesome people in art school, too. I just learned that when I went to art school, when I went to Pratt in New York City back in 2001? 2000? I think it was 2000. The year 2000. It was before 9/11, that's for sure. Maybe 99, 2000, not really sure. I suddenly realized everyone was nice to talk to. It's like, oh, zip. Artists are my people. We speak the same language. I finally felt normal talking to people. It's like, I gotta go to art school. That's what I gotta do. This is where people speak my language. This is my tribe. We're all a little weird. You all don't know the social graces because we spent more time practicing drawing, not practicing talking. Drew says to minions. It's almost like Tom Onions. I don't know why that is. To minions. Drew says, I'd have them doing chores. Absolutely. Is that like cleaning a house and cleaning dishes? And I wasn't even thinking about practical uses. I was thinking like taking over an Arby's. That's what I would do. I would take over the Arby's and run it right. Dude, Arby's in Shrewsbury is an angry place. People do not like working there. Drew said, dang, saved you some time there. Drew said, although Dust can't talk. Love you, Dustin. Because he was busy practicing painting. He was busy practicing painting and drawing and marrying Nicole. Never got to work on talking. Love you, Dustin. Yeah, it's funny listening to the O'Hara podcast, like how the different brothers came out, because y'all came from the same place, but you're genetically a little different, somehow, mutations, whatever you want to call it, and you all talk a little differently, but you're all boys from the same two parents and from the same place. It's really interesting. Like, your older brother, Derek, right? Veteran? Like, he has a very direct way to talk, and probably from being in the Marines, learn how to talk a very specific way when you're being trained to kill people. And you're more casual, happy-go-lucky. Dustin got to be the biggest and just didn't worry about talking because he could force his way through wherever he wanted to go. Plus, when he had that long hair, he just looked like some kind of Viking Thor Jerry Garcia. So no one wanted to hate on him. You know, just like this big, lovable teddy bear. You don't have to talk. You're a big, lovable teddy bear. People want you around no matter what you say. You don't have to say anything. And then Devin, like, just had to be funny all the time. He learned how to talk. He learned how to talk the best because he was the runt of the litter. And he had to be the funniest one or else he'd get murdered by the rest of you guys, right? Oh, Drew says can talk is what I meant. I thought I thought you said Dustin can't talk. It's much funnier saying Dustin can't talk than he can talk. I don't know what that is. No, I know why it is. I know because like the it's still new. Like the whole talking to the audience is still a relatively new thing. I know he's a teacher. It's a funny joke. So and so doesn't know how to talk. I like it. Because the joke used to be I can't read. I don't know how to read. Sending me messages, I can't read. I don't know how to read. I don't know how to type. I don't know how to spell. But now we're at a point in society when we can say, you know, I don't know how to talk. I don't know how to talk to people. This is a new thing. I was out in the mountains on a vision quest, and I realized I don't know how to talk. I thought I did. I made a bunch of noises with my mouth for 30 years. But I still had all these problems. At the ripe old age of 37, I realized I didn't know how to talk. I just thought I did. I gotta thank all the streamers out there who have come before me because I've learned watching other streamers what are some effective ways of talking to the internet, to the void. And I gotta thank Pressburg, Rogan. Who else do I listen to? Any Letterman is really funny. Dan Carlin. Corolla. Corolla's pretty great. But Corolla's taken like a back seat to whatever's going on now. I think he's trying to figure out what the next thing is. Corolla, I think, has realized that what's happening with podcasting right now is the same thing that happened with the housing market in 2007. And Drew, between your family actually comes to mind with this because I remember it was like 2000. I bought my house in 2005, moved in 2006, and things were weird. Like the whole housing market was crazy. This is an important lesson for kids who weren't alive at the time. Like I think a lot of people who are above the age of 30 remember. I mean, not 30, maybe older than 35. Remember there was this pressure in the United States to buy a home in the 2000s. And if you weren't buying a home, you were going to miss out because we're going to run out of homes. That was the feeling I had in 2000. I was 21 or something. It was weird. Like there was this there was somehow the banks, the government, and everybody were like getting really riled up and anxious about home ownership. And I knew the party was coming to an end when your parents, Drew, were saying they were going to get into real estate. It's like, oh, this party is over. The cops are coming and it's getting shut down. That keg is tapped. That keg is tapped. And I love your parents, but they're not real estate agents. Now, granted, they bought themselves a really nice house. I think I helped you guys move into that house. I think I was there for like some of the moves, some of the family. I remember carrying pianos or something with the family, like 15, 20 years ago, whatever it was. And then that was the first time I saw like when the crowd's when everyone's going one direction, you got to start asking like why and what's the other way. Right? And then 2007, boom! Got to watch that movie, The Big Short. Drew says Dustin is the best talker out of the bros. Really? I think Devin's the best talker. I mean, I think you're funny. You come with the one-liners. But I think Devin's got that radio voice. Dustin, I got to work with Dustin because he does a lot of uhs and ums. Love the guy. I'm not being critical. I want to work with him on that. Got to work on that. Drew says you both do it well. My streams would be practically silent. I think if you had a subject matter you're really interested in, you could talk. Brandon said, when COVID is over, I'm taking you with me to a concert, and you will meet my friend Randy. You'll get along well. Dude, I would love a concert. And Randy sounds like a fun fella. I want to hang out with the other buddy we met earlier last year with the LWRC products. Gonna hang out with that. Sorry, laughing at something else in Discord. How long are we going? It's 1:40. Gonna do a 2-hour stream today. Cisco likes the video. Brandon likes the video. Drew liked the video. Yeah, you guys are already they're already there. Glad. Thanks for the likes. Thanks for the likes. I think Nathan tuned out. Didn't like my politics. I think it's just Breadman and Drew hanging out. Nathan was probably like, Tom's too controversial. He still thinks there's only 2 genders. Look, I made a shout out saying I made a non-binary acceptance thing. I said, like, whoever's not a dude or a dudette. Part of my goal today, Brandon and Drew, is to figure out what the non-gendered form of the word dude is. Because I was in the shower thinking about dude, the dude abides, man. Can I get like a name that's like Tom the Doodler? Like dude, D-U-D-E-L-E-R, like as a web stream handle, Instagram thing, Doodler. Dude abides, I'll draw whatever. Drew says Dev has to warm up though, in general for conversations. When I drink, I can talk. They both have great radio voices. They're good. I think actually everyone has a good radio voice. The trick is to partner them with the right person, like Howard Stern, Robin Quivers, Joe Rogan, Joey Diaz. Who else is a great combo? A lot of the NPR shows do this funny thing where you have some like ultra liberal, super lefty, kind of effeminate guy voice, like an Ira Glass on one side, and then some Indian scientist on the other side, like a Dinesh D'Souza or somebody. Like and the British Indian accent against the left coast metro male is an interesting left right kind of balancing thing. I can listen to those conversations for a while. I think I said too many scandalous things to put this video on YouTube. I think this is just going to be a Facebook video, and then I'm going to get canceled because someone at Facebook headquarters is going to watch it and be like, "This is too controversial." Getting kicked off of Facebook. I don't know. I gotta respect Bill Maher. That whole politically incorrect show idea is great. Sometimes I think he's annoying, but I respect what he's doing. He's trying to have conversations with conservatives, along with liberals, along with people, trying to find people in the middle, and trying to find people who are going to say, hang on a minute, what? Are we controlling language here? And comedians in general they thrive in environments where language is being controlled because they're the ones that have to stand up and say, wait a second. They're the ones going the opposite way of the crowd. If the crowd's moving towards very controlled, very polite speech, what makes them funny is being that one meteor that's flying off in their direction. Wait a second, let's say something completely racy and interesting and funny. Make people crack up. Brandon says, I can't believe you would say left. What about the right? Up and down. All directions matter. Drew said, should have figured out how to say dude QGBT. Did you see that Chappelle special last year? I love that bit when he goes after the LGBT groups. He's like, they run Hollywood. That bit when he's like, what I didn't know is that they're all their own movement. L, the B, the G, the T, they're all their own movement. They just travel in the same car. And then the bit that unfolds after that. Don't want to spoil it. So good. So important. And thank heavens for Dave Chappelle. Okay, so here's a problem that I get into when I'm drawing. I forget I'm on different layers. So I got some of this background stuff on the wrong layer. So I'm just going to do a quick trick. I'm going to make a mark in the corners. And then I can cut everything but the character out. So we cut the character, and then we Control-Shift-I for inverse, Control-X, and then Control-V, and it goes back. As long as those corner marks are there, it goes back to the same spot. So then I delete the corner points, and then I merge that with the background. That's it. That's good. Okay, cool. Well, dudes, I'm just about talked out. Hour 46. I think y'all got your value for your buck today. I hope you guys have a great week. I'm having fun. I'm going to listen to some podcasts and maybe get some lunch. I'm starving. I only had a banana and some Pop-Tarts today. And while Pop-Tarts are filling, they are completely deficient of protein. And my body's like, dude, I had a dream about making a turkey last night. I'm thinking about making a turkey today. Still got a Thanksgiving turkey in my freezer. Maybe I'll let it thaw out today. I know nothing about making turkeys, but we're going to figure it out. We're going to figure out the gender-neutral version of dude and how to make a turkey on this Tuesday. Thanks all for hanging out. This was fun. I had a great time. I hope you did too. We're making progress. We drew some moss today. It was cool. And I hope you all have a great first week of 2021. Peace out.